Hi there, and welcome to Her Season of Strength, where women over 40 reclaim their bodies, their energy, and their voices without apologies. I'm Kim Duffy, registered dietitian, personal trainer, mom, and your biggest hype woman when it comes to aging like you mean it. This show isn't about chasing skinny or counting wrinkles. It's about building real strength, physical, emotional, and hormonal. Each week, I'll share straight-talking nutrition tips, sustainable fitness strategies, and conversations that help you feel powerful in your skin once again. Menopause isn't an ending, it's only the beginning. This is your season of strength. Hey, and welcome back to Her Season of Strength. I'm Kim Duffy, and I'm so happy you're here. So a few weeks back, I asked for feedback about what y'all were interested in learning more about, or what habits, like healthy habits, that you struggle with. And I asked about a few of them. I gave you some options: bone health, cardiovascular health, and cholesterol or brain health. And what's funny is those topics weren't nearly as exciting as a completely different option, and that was meal planning and prepping. Y'all love my recipe videos I post on Instagram and TikTok, so I made the decision to make a mini course on how to successfully get consistent with simple meal planning. And I say simple, S-I-M-P-L-E, because that is kind of my system for teaching the easy prep blueprint, which is what I'm calling the mini course. So I'm super excited about it. It is going to be available for purchase as of June 16th. I promise it's going to be very affordable. I just opened the priority interest list last Monday for this very first inaugural launch. So this is that list that you will need to be on in order to get early access to the program, as well as the best discounts and bonuses for the program. And there's going to be some really awesome bonuses. I'll drop the link in the show notes if you'd like to get on that list. And like I said, I'll be opening the cart to the priority list only on June 16th for 3 days. And so the priority list is going to close as of the 15th. You won't be able to get on it by, beyond June 15th. And then I will be opening it to the public the following week at a higher cost. So while we're on the subject of meal planning, let's talk a little bit about why you should even care. You're like, whatever, I just eat what I eat. It doesn't matter. I just throw something together at the end of the day. I want you to picture this little scene and tell me if it sounds familiar. So it's 6 p.m. You just got home. You're tired. You're not just physically tired, but you're that irritable, bone-deep level tired that comes from just going, doing everything for everyone all day long. You open the fridge and you're just standing there. You're staring. There's a leftover something from 3 days ago. There's some condiments, half a block of cheese, and maybe a vegetable you bought with the best intentions that is now covered in mold. So what happens? Maybe you grab a handful of crackers with some, a chunk of cheese. Maybe you order food that you didn't really want, but it's like, I gotta have something, right? Maybe you throw in a frozen pizza, or you eat a bowl of cereal, or you make a big bowl of popcorn. And then later, around 9 p.m., the cravings hit. You find yourself out in the kitchen. You're digging around for something sweet. Maybe you're having some ice cream. Maybe you find some cookies. And you feel like you kind of can't get full. You're just snacking. And all of this while, you're getting very frustrated with yourself. And you go to bed feeling kind of guilty for eating like that, but telling yourself, I'll do better tomorrow. Does that sound familiar? Now I want to paint a little bit of a different picture. So think about it. It's the same 6 p.m. You're the same tired. You've had the same long day. You open the refrigerator and there's a plan. There's chicken or fish or beef already cooked. There's a grain or a potato ready to go. There are vegetables that are roasted and just waiting for you to throw them in there. So you throw together a beautiful bowl, macro balanced, in about 5 minutes. It's balanced, it's satisfying and tasty. And 2 hours later, you are not raiding the pantry because your body actually felt nourished. It felt fueled, and it ate things that actually stopped those cravings. And that difference is not about willpower. That's just preparation. And today I want to talk about kind of why that preparation matters for women over 40 more than it ever did before. But you might say, I don't like to cook, or I don't know how to cook. Maybe you watch other people meal prep, or you even watch like my videos on social media making a little bit more advanced dishes. And you're like, I can't do that. That's just too much, right? That's not exactly how simple meal prep needs to be. We need to make it simple or else we will not do it. Especially doing it consistently. We might start out and we're doing great, but then we quit because it is not sustainable for the long term. So we need to make it simple. But before I go there, I want to dive into just a few basics about us women over 40. We are different than we were in our 20s and 30s. We can no longer run through the Burger King drive-thru and call it dinner. I mean, maybe we can, but really, I mean, do we want to? We can't eat half of a pizza and drink a large Coke and feel good the next day. We just don't bounce back like we used to. And I want to talk about kind of why that is and what we need to do instead. So let's dive in. If we begin with the foundation, I think, this is the piece that many women are kind of missing. And when they understand it, kind of everything else falls to place. So the strategies that worked for us in our 30s, and really we probably didn't even have strategies. We were just going, willy-nilly doing whatever we wanted, and our bodies just kind of bounced back. I mean, heck, we'd go work out one time and we'd say, oh my gosh, look, I can see my abs. And, it was just a whole different world. Our body responded differently. But now with our drop in estrogen, our body's changed. Estrogen and progesterone are declining and fluctuating in ways they never did before. And these hormones don't just affect our period or our cycle or our hot flashes. They're affecting our metabolism too. And they're affecting our energy, and they're affecting our hunger and our fullness. And they affect where our body is storing fat. And they absolutely affect how our body responds to what we eat. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about estrogen and insulin. First of all, estrogen helps our cells respond to insulin properly. It supports what we call insulin sensitivity. And I know I've talked about this all the time, but this is such a key component when it comes to menopause and perimenopause. So when our estrogen is healthy and at stable levels, our body handles blood sugar efficiently for most people, right? But as estrogen drops in perimenopause and menopause, our insulin sensitivity decreases. Our cells do not respond as well. So our body has to produce more insulin to try to bring those blood sugars down and do the same job it used to do, so easily. And why does this matter is when we have those chronically elevated insulin levels, that is one of the primary drivers of fat storage, especially around our midsection and our bellies. So, when my clients come to me and say, I'm eating the same way I always have, but I'm gaining weight, and it seems to all be kind of around my midsection, my waistband is expanding. This is often a large part of what is happening. And it's not, that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that hormonal context has shifted and we need to change approaches. Next is cortisol. And you've heard me talk about this one frequently too, and because it's a big one and it doesn't get talked about. And actually, no, I take that back. It does get talked about a lot. But I also think that people truly don't understand that cortisol is very needed, right? It is not just a bad thing. We have to have cortisol. But the problem is once our estrogen drops, we can start to see that our body responds different. Our cortisol response is amplified. And our body treats certain eating patterns as stress, right? Because it's our stress hormone. When we skip meals, when we go too long without eating, when we're eating kind of unbalanced meals that cause these blood sugars spike and fall, all of these things can trigger cortisol. And when that cortisol level is chronically elevated as compared to what it's normally supposed to be, which is higher in the morning, and, it decreases as the day progresses. I do also have an episode specifically on cortisol. That is episode number 33, and it is called naturally balanced cortisol for better sleep, energy, and hormone support. So I will link that in the podcast, the show notes, in case that's something you'd want to go back and listen to. But it was, definitely taking a deep dive into cortisol, what it is and what it does. So moving on. So when our cortisol is chronically elevated, it increases our belly fat storage, just like that insulin resistance. It disrupts sleep, it amplifies anxiety, and it can make it harder to lose weight no matter how hard you're working out. So those women who are grinding in the gym and they're restricting their eating and they're still not seeing results, cortisol is often a major factor. Your body is just in that high stress constantly. And it's, that stressed body is going to hold on to fat. It's a survival mechanism. That's just our body's trying to survive, right? So third, I want to talk about hunger hormones. There's a hormone called ghrelin, starts with a G, G-H-R-E-L-I-N, is the hormone that triggers hunger. Leptin is the hormone that signals fullness. Both of them are influenced by estrogen. So as estrogen fluctuates during perimenopause, so do those signals. So this is why you can feel, ravenous even though you just ate an hour ago, or you feel satisfied at dinner and then desperately hungry at 9 p.m. Those hunger and fullness cues are a little bit less reliable than they used to be. They're just not kind of as calibrated as they once were. So, what does all of this mean practically? It means that what you eat, when you eat it, and how balanced each meal is sends a direct hormonal signal to your body. So we want consistent, balanced meals to tell your body that it's safe and it's going to be fed and it's not going to have to go for long periods without food. In a body that feels safe and fed, it's going to regulate those hormones better, it's going to burn fat more efficiently, it's going to sleep better, and it's going to have more energy. So meal planning and prep, it's not about being rigid or controlling. It's just about, communicating with your body in the language that it understands right now, not what it understood, 20 years ago. So I want to spend just a second more about, talking a little bit about blood sugar specifically, because I think, it is definitely the most important piece of hormonal support. How many of these symptoms would you say that you experience on a regular basis? So, that 3 p.m. or afternoon energy crash, where you seriously feel like you could fall asleep or take a nap, right? The sugar or the carb cravings that just kind of come out of nowhere, especially in that same period of time, that afternoon. Waking up between, 2 and 4 a.m., not being able to fall back asleep even though you're exhausted. Those mood dips or that irritability between meals, that, feeling of being fine and then suddenly you're just over it, you're done. Feeling hungry at, just an hour after you eat, like your meal didn't even happen. That brain fog after lunch, like, I can't quite think straight, that makes, the second half of the day very challenging. So, like, if any of those sound familiar, I want you to hear this. Every single one of those symptoms, we can trace it directly back to blood sugar instability. And this is also amplified because estrogen is no longer helping to buffer that response. So, when you're eating a meal that's high in simple carbs, right, and low in protein and fiber and fat, your blood sugar is going to spike quickly. Your body releases insulin to bring it back down. And in a younger, kind of more estrogen-rich hormonal environment, that process it's smooth and regulated. Your body is just like, yep, we need insulin. We're going to pull that extra sugar into the cells, and we're going to bring down that blood sugar level. But without that hormonal support, the correction can overshoot. Our blood sugar can drop lower than it should, and our body responds with urgency. Like, I'm hungry, I need to eat something, right? It signals our cravings. And, our brain is basically saying, I need glucose, and it wants it fast. And that's why you're reaching for those carbohydrates and not the chicken or the salmon. And this cycle can repeat multiple times a day without us even realizing that it's happening. And it feels like a willpower problem. It feels like you're just bad at eating, but it's not. It's a blood sugar and a hormone problem. And the fix is not discipline. The fix is building meals that don't create the problem in the first place. So what does a blood sugar stabilizing meal look like? I want you to understand this concept. Every meal needs 3 things working together. And you've heard me talk about a million times. Protein. Protein should be your anchor, right? It slows how quickly the glucose enters your bloodstream, which means a slower, steadier rise in blood sugar rather than that spike and fall, right? And it also keeps you fuller longer. It supports our muscle mass, which is so important for us, especially when we're doing strength training. And it helps to regulate those hunger hormones that we just talked about. Protein is just kind of a non-negotiable. Next is fiber. Fiber from vegetables and those complex carbs or whole grains. It kind of works the same way. It slows down digestion a bit. It slows glucose absorption, and it feeds those good gut bacteria that also play a role in our hormone metabolism. So think of, cruciferous veggies like broccoli or cauliflower or Brussels sprouts. Those are especially valuable for women in perimenopause because they support how our body processes and eliminates estrogen. The third thing is healthy fat. And fat, I think so often we think of it as the enemy, but it is essential for hormone production because our hormones are literally made from fat and cholesterol. Fat also slows digestion. It sustains energy between meals, and it keeps you satisfied in a way that carbs alone cannot. So when we have those 3 things present in our meals and snacks, we see a nice blood sugar stability. Our cravings quiet down. We see that we have longer lasting energy. We're not getting, starving, hungry at 9 p.m. and we're raiding the pantry. Becomes less urgent. And over time, as our body experiences more consistent blood sugar, it kind of starts to settle that hormonal chaos. But here's the catch. You can understand all of this completely and still not do it consistently if you don't have food ready when the hunger hits, right? You'd be like, oh, I know all of this stuff. But if you don't have a plan, that it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket, right? So a balanced meal, it's easy to build when we have those components ready in our fridge. It's nearly impossible to build from scratch when you are tired and hungry and staring at an empty refrigerator at 6 p.m. It's not a failure of knowledge, it's a failure of preparation. You're not setting yourself up for success. And that's something that we can fix. So why most meal prep approaches fail for women over 40 is because you've probably tried it before or you tried it more than once and maybe it worked for a week or 2 and then just fell apart. And if that's you, I need you to know it was probably not the right approach for where you are in life right now, and it's not a personal failing, right? Here's the most common ways prep falls apart for women over 40. The all-day Sunday cook session. You've seen this one on social media. Someone spending literally 4 hours in the kitchen on Sunday, 30 containers lined up. Everything is perfectly portioned, and it looks really impressive. It feels productive the first time you do it, and then it becomes the thing you dread. It's exhausting. It takes your whole Sunday. And by Tuesday, you're already bored of everything you made. It's not sustainable, and honestly, it's not necessary. Nobody needs to spend 4 hours prepping food every week. Making the same meals on repeat until you can't stand them. Boredom is a very real reason women will stop meal prepping. If your prep system means eating the same chicken and rice and broccoli every day for a week, it's going to wear thin fast. And when you're bored, you start skipping the prep food in favor of something more interesting, which usually means less balance and probably not quite as good of quality of food for you. Following a plan that doesn't fit your life. Most meal prep content online is built for someone with unlimited time, no family to consider, no dietary preferences to work around, and no hormone-specific needs. And that's not you. A plan that doesn't account for your reality isn't going to survive contact with your actual week. Next issue is not having a repeatable system. This is the biggest one. Every week becomes a full project. You have to decide what to make, figure out if you have the ingredients, find time to go shopping, find time to cook, and somehow fit it all around everything else you're managing. And with no system, prep is a constant lift. It requires that same amount of mental energy every single week, and that's exactly why it doesn't stick. So here's the shift I want you to make. Meal prep for women over 40 is not about eating perfectly. It's just about reducing friction and decision fatigue so that eating well becomes the path of least resistance. So that, when you open the fridge and the right food is already there, you make better choices automatically. You don't need discipline in that moment. You made the good decision earlier when you had the time and energy to do it. And that's what a system does. It front loads the effort so that the hard moments become easy. And the goal is not a perfect week. The goal is just a system that still functions on your worst week, because those weeks are real. Am I right? They happen to all of us. And having something that works even then is what builds that habit for the long term. So let's paint a little picture of what this actually looks like in practice, not the Instagram version, the real version, for a real woman with a real life. So first of all, it's not an all-day event. A realistic, effective meal prep session for women over 40 is somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes. Once, maybe twice a week. And that's it. If you're spending more than that, the system needs to be simplified. It's built around components, not complete meals. And this is one of the most important shifts you can make. Instead of prepping 5 completely separate meals, you prep the components that mix and match. A protein or 2, a grain or 2, a few vegetables, some grab-and-go snacks. From those components, you can build different combinations throughout the week so nothing feels repetitive. So Monday's chicken bowl looks different from Wednesday's chicken salad, but the chicken was prepped at the same time. It always starts with a protein first, because protein is the hardest component to have ready on a weekday night, and it is the most important. So when you sit down to plan your week, the first question is, what are my protein sources this week? Once you have that answered, everything else builds around it. And when the protein is already cooked and waiting in your fridge, putting together a balanced meal takes minutes and not an hour. It accounts for snacks. This is something a lot of women skip, and it's one of the reasons the evening cravings don't stop. If you're crashing at 3 p.m. and just pushing it down and not eating anything, and you're raiding the pantry at 9 p.m., your meals earlier in the day probably weren't balanced or substantial enough to carry you. I see this all the time. Women are having the light little breakfast or not even eating breakfast, and then they have a little salad with maybe a little protein on it for lunch. And then they wonder why the heck they can't stop eating in the evening. We need snacks. I'm a huge snacker, because they're part of that hormone support strategy. A snack that combines protein and fiber, something like, Greek yogurt with berries, or hard-boiled eggs with veggies, or apple slices with almond or peanut butter. It's going to keep that blood sugar stable between meals, and it takes that edge off the hunger that can lead to overeating or poor choices later. Next, the shopping list is short and built from the plan. So you're not wandering the aisles trying to figure out what sounds good. You have a list that reflects exactly what you need for the week. And you get in, you get out. Because grocery shopping without a plan or when you're hungry is one of the biggest time drains and one of the biggest reasons that prep doesn't happen. So let me mention a few food categories that are especially supportive for women in perimenopause and menopause. Fatty fish like salmon and sardines, they're rich in omega-3s, which support our hormone production and reduce inflammation. Cruciferous veggies like broccoli and cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts support how our body processes and eliminates estrogen. Legumes like lentils and chickpeas and black beans are super excellent sources of fiber, as well as that plant-based protein that support our blood sugar stability. Eggs are one of the most hormone-friendly foods there is, rich in protein and healthy fats and choline, which supports our brain health. So important. And seeds, especially flax, pumpkin, and chia. They're going to contain phytoestrogens that can help buffer some of those estrogen fluctuation during perimenopause. So none of this has to be complicated. It just has to be intentional, right? And an intention, when it's supported by a system, becomes habit. So here's what I want to tell you. I've been getting so many messages from women who say they understand this information, but just can't make it stick in real life. They know they should be meal prepping. They know why it matters, but every week it's the same thing. Something comes up, they don't have a plan, they end up winging it, and they feel frustrated because they know better and it's still not working. And it is keeping them from reaching their ultimate wellness or health goals. And I keep hearing that same thing over and over. I need someone to just give me the system, the actual step-by-step, or make the food for me, or the templates, the framework I can follow without having to figure it out. So I built it. I built the Easy Prep Blueprint, which is self-paced. You can do it, over a few weeks if you want. You can do it in a weekend if you really want to. It's just, I made it super digestible and easy. It's just short, simple videos you can work through over a couple weeks or binge in a weekend, and either way works. It's built around kind of my simple method. I told you this, SIMPLE, which walks you through just 6 straightforward steps for building a sustainable, repeatable habit of planning and prepping those meals that are actually balanced, but don't take hours in the kitchen. They don't take complicated recipes, and they don't take wandering around, the grocery store without a plan. And you don't need to be a great cook. You don't need to have a ton of time. You just need a system that fits your real life. And that's exactly what this course gives you. So here's the part I really want you to pay attention to. This is the first time I'm running the course, and because it's a founding member launch, the women who get on the priority list are going to get access during just that 3-day window, June 16th through the 18th, at the lowest price this course will ever be offered. After that window closes on June 18th, the price is going to go up for the public launch. And after the public launch, it's going to go up again where it just kind of lives permanently on my website. I'm not for sure if I'll take it down or if I'll leave it up for a bit and just launch it at certain times of the year. But if you're on that priority list, you hear about it first, you pay the least, you get bonuses that are exclusively for founding members, and they won't be available to anyone else at any price. So you can get on the priority list now at strengthandnutrition.com, and actually I'm going to put the link in the show notes. It takes 30 seconds. All you need is first name and your email list. There's no obligation for you to join this, but you need to be on this list if you do want to join and get the discounts and the bonus. And if you get there and you decide it's not for you, no pressure. It's not going to be for everybody. But if you've been listening to this episode and you're thinking, this is exactly what I need, then the priority list is your next step. So let's bring all of this together for you. Your hormones after 40, we know that they're changing the rules. They're causing a bit of chaos going on in our body. Estrogen's connection to insulin sensitivity, that amplified cortisol response, that shifting hunger and fullness signals, they're real physiological changes happening in our bodies. And they just mean that our body needs more consistency and support from what you eat now, not less. Blood sugar stability is the foundation. It really is. The afternoon crashes, the cravings, the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the belly fat. So much of that traces back to how your blood sugar is being managed throughout the day. And the most powerful tool for stabilizing blood sugar is having just those balanced, consistent meals and snacks that are ready to go. And most prep approaches, they fail not because the woman wasn't trying hard enough, because the system didn't really fit her life. The right system is simple, it's flexible, it's repeatable, and it works even on those hard weeks. A realistic prep week is not a Sunday marathon all day long. It's literally 60 to 90 minutes. Making components over complete meals, protein first, snacks included, and a shopping list that kind of reflects that whole plan. So here's what I want you to do this week, just one thing. Pick 2 protein sources. Cook them ahead of time. Put them in your fridge. That's it. See how different your week feels when you open that fridge and there's already kind of a foundation that's waiting for you. That one small action is the beginning of that habit that changes everything. Maybe you're going to do some chicken, maybe you can do some fish, maybe some beef. Maybe if you don't eat meat, you're going to do some beans. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to kind of start, right? And then you just need to be consistent, one foot in front of the other. So before I let you go, 2 things. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a woman in your life who has ever stood in front of the fridge at 6 p.m. with nothing prepped and no idea what to make. Send it to her, text her the link. She needs to hear this. And if you haven't followed the podcast yet, please do it right now so you never miss an episode. We drop new content every single Thursday, and I don't want you guys missing any of it. And if you're ready to stop winging it and actually have a system, get on the priority list for the Easy Prep Blueprint by clicking the link in the show notes. Doors open June 16th, just for 3 days. Best price ever, bonuses nobody else gets. That's the window. And remember, this is about progress over perfection. We're in this for the long haul, and this is your season of strength. Have a fantastic day.